Shalom, welcome to the Jewish View. My name is Rabbi Nachman Simon with the Chabados of Delmar, together with my co-host Mark Kronich of statewide news service jbiztechvalley.com, and now columnist for the Jewish Press.
Right, I have a column called Albany Beat, and it talks about how government relates to the Jewish community, or doesn't, as the case may be.
So, hopefully it does.
One of my favorite guests returning here on the Jewish View is Assemblyman Dov Hikind.
Thank you.
Welcome back to the Jewish View. It's so good to see you.
Pleasure to be here.
So,
Talk about the Jewish community. You are the representative of probably the most dense Jewish community in the entire world. I once heard that Borough Park. It has more Jews per square mile than even Jerusalem.
That's why they're moving to KJ and other communities. Maybe we'll get some of them to come to Albany.
Yeah,
they're looking for new areas.
we are, and we have a very a growing Jewish community here in the Capital District.
Yeah.
But you also represent Midwood, which is
absolutely
a
where I
large
actually
Jewish...
live. Right.
Yeah.
I mean, Borough Park is basically, I would say, 98% Hasidic Jews from every single Hasidic group in the world. And then you have the Midwood section where you have more of the yeshivish, some modern Orthodox, young Israels, and others.
Mm-hmm. And you have a growing Muslim community in Midwood? Or?
Well, there is a very large Muslim community bordering Midwood. Within minutes of Borough Park, and I mean minutes, and Midwood, you have a huge Muslim community. Also Diker Heights, which is 7-8 minutes away from Borough Park. If you walk down streets in Diker Heights, every single store for 20 blocks will have Arabic in the signs. So yeah, there's a huge growth. And one of the incredible things, by the way, thank God, is that it's been quiet.
There
hasn't been any kind of
They
problem.
can get along. We can all get along, including like in Crown Heights with the blacks and the Jews. When after the riots,
Absolutely.
they played basketball together to show we can get along.
Absolutely, and that's the case here. There haven't been any incidents. So it's really, it's a remarkable story. Actually, people have written about it, and hopefully, in light of what's going on all over the country, thank God it's been really quiet in Brooklyn.
Okay, let's keep it that way.
There we hope.
And in the assembly, one of the big issues, I'll bring it up, is the Education Investment Tax Credit, or the governor's Parental Choice and Education Act. Did you ever think you could be pro-choice?
I'm for choice. It's funny when you say choice. Who doesn't believe that people should have a choice? In America, our society, people should be able to choose what's best for their children. Public schools are extremely important. Education is the most important thing in the world. Future leaders, the future members of the assembly, the future people who will be doing the show, they are in school now. They are studying, they're learning. Education is extremely important. And the idea of giving people choice is an extremely important thing. The idea of helping parents, poor families, in terms of their expenses relating to private and parochial schools should be a no-brainer. It's being done in other parts of the country, and hopefully it will happen here on some level. We want to open up the door. It's the right thing. It's the appropriate thing. There's tremendous support. The governor has been pushing this, really playing what I call a leadership role. The Senate is very much on board, and I think a good part of the assembly as well. We hope, with God's help, that it all comes together and that we get something that will begin. It's not going to solve anyone's problem. If you have 2 kids or 5 kids or 8 or 10 kids, which is very common in my community, this will help you. This will not solve your problem, but this will make a difference.
What do you make of former Speaker Silver's plan to just give $500 for every child you have?
Well, it's not a bad idea, but that's not on the table right now. That is not, now anything can happen. We have session for 6 months, and the last 24 hours, things that couldn't happen or were not supposed to happen suddenly may happen.
But isn't that incorporated into the governor's bill?
Absolutely. The idea of giving a credit, the idea that former Speaker Silva actually presented a number of months ago is part of the package that's on the table. what will be taken from the package, the Cusack bill, the governor's two pieces, Shelly's piece, etc. I'm just hoping that we walk away with something of substance, not crumbs.
Should it be linked? Like the first half of the session, the EITC was linked to the DREAM Act. Now it's allegedly linked to rent control. Or should this issue be linked to other issues?
Well, I'll tell you, in a perfect world, no. Everything should stand by itself.
No, in the assembly
In an
world.
imperfect world, whatever helps us get there
But
to
does
the
it help?
end line.
But does it help?
Absolutely.
Linking it helps.
Absolutely. Look, for some people, there are people who philosophically are against doing anything to help private and parochial school children, parents, right? Philosophically, we're not going to change any of them. But there are a lot of other people who are on the fence, as they say. And to a lot of these people, the issue of rent control, rent stabilization, which is important to me as well, to them that is the most important thing. So at the end of the day, you got to give a little bit. Everybody gives a little bit. If not for some of this brinkmanship, I call it, we might not be able to get certain things done. At the end of the day, compromise, everyone giving a little bit, hopefully will end up in making no one totally happy, but everyone a little happy. That's good.
So, and you still are not on any legislative committees.
Right. Nothing's changed.
Why?
And it's interesting. I remember the last time we discussed this,
Yeah.
and after 32 years, running for re-election not too long ago, this was like the opportunity. Someone ran against me and spend $1.3 million, which is probably maybe a record in terms of expenditure. So I remember saying to myself, well, whatever this guy can come up with to throw at me, they're going to do. At the end of the day, look, I have been involved in some of the most important things in the Jewish community. I play a role in them. I'm consulted with, spoken to, whether it's Jim Yates, whether it's the speaker. Just before I came to the show, they were discussing with me certain things, which I don't want to go into, in terms of what do you think, what should we do, and so on. So let me tell you, I don't do anything else. This is my full-time job.
Right.
I made a choice a long time ago that whatever time I have, running committees are important. Someone has to be on them, and that system works. But at the end of the day, if I was the chairman of the education committee, they would have taken me off a long time ago. I wouldn't have survived, and a lot of other things. Because look, I have my own way and my own philosophy. Look, this past year, I voted against the entire budget, every single piece. Never did that before, on principle, because we did not do the what I thought was extremely important. We did $1.6 billion additional dollars for public education. Now I think it's like $26 billion. The idea that we couldn't do $150 million for private and parochial schools, part of that money going to public schools, by the way, public school teachers, I felt was immoral. I felt it was so wrong. So I did something, and it antagonized. Again, I'm not going to tell you the offices I was called into because they were upset, but people were not happy with that, but I got up there and spoke about it and voted against each and every single bill on principle.
You're courageous.
You know what? It's too late not to be.
And you know what?
Me.
And you know what? They couldn't take away a committee assignment from you.
You know something? It's very hard to
gives you
look.
freedom.
You could punish me, but and again, when I'm out of the assembly, I'll come back and tell you, what exactly they did threaten me with, whoever they are. But look, at the end of the day, I have always tried to do what I think is the right thing to do, on whatever the issue is. And I'm involved way beyond my community. I've been called upon by many other Jewish communities when there's an issue, and if it involves the Jewish community as a whole, I will try to educate myself on the issues, whether it's East Ramapo, whether it's Kiryas Joel. They have their issues, their problems. When Jews call on me, and whether it's Israel, that I am very, very involved, I'm going to be there for a fellow Jew. That's what it's all about. I mean, I don't have to tell you guys. I mean, you represent Lubavitch more than anyone, right?
Right.
That's the philosophy of Lubavitch, to be there for a fellow Jew. I don't look at what kind of Jew that is, and it's irrelevant to me. But we need to be there for each other. That's what it's all about.
Well, you have the roots in Lubavitch because
I-
you've been in Crown Heights. You were
Not only that, I have such incredible memories of the Rebbe, whose yahrzeit is actually coming up. Such fond memories of going to him, of speaking to him speaking to me, him actually sending me, when I went to Israel on one of my trips a long time ago, to actually visit Kfar Chabad. He wanted me to go look at the mikveh, the ritual bath house. And I came
what?
back
For what reason? Just to
because
see
it
it?
was so beautiful. They had imported everything from Italy. He was so proud, and he wanted me to go. And I came back, and I told him, and it was incredible. And the hana, the pleasure that he had in my describing to him how beautiful and magnificent it was, that when women go to a mikveh, to a ritual bath, they should be going to like the most beautiful spa, to the most beautiful place. So I always very close to Lubavitch. In fact, can I tell one short story?
Please do.
This is a story, in fact, it's my mother's yahrzeit coming up. She passed away 2 years ago. We used to walk on Eastern Parkway, where Lubavitch is located. And this is a memory that I have, that I've repeated. My mother and I would walk on Eastern Parkway, and the Rebbe would come down the block. No entourage, maybe someone was there, by himself. And what did my mother always remember, and that I always remember? That the Rebbe took the initiative to say Good Shabbos to my mother. And that memory, and that's a lesson, little things. The Rebbe, Good Shabbos, eye-to-eye contact.
Right.
That's a beautiful,
Powerful.
beautiful thing. Powerful,
yeah.
exactly.
Well, they say the eyes are the windows to the soul.
Exactly.
And when you're looking...
Yeah, I mean, he was, one of the great leaders, and we all miss him tremendously.
Absolutely.
His physical presence.
Yeah, but he's with us. He's
Oh,
still
listen,
strong.
look what Lubavitch continues to do all over the world. I mean, it's amazing. When you think about it, where in this world can you end up and not find Lubavitch? Nepal? You name it. The
That's true.
corners of the world, there's someone there, and they put their hand out, and they're there for you. They don't judge you. They don't, no, you're a Jew, period.
Well, we were just talking about Rabbi Simon's son, Aharon, goes around the world for Pesach to make sure there's seders and...
I wanted to be at home, but the Lubavitcher wanted him around
It's
the
like
world.
they used to say, join the Navy, you
Yeah,
travel.
right.
Well, join Lubavitch and
You
you travel,
travel,
right?
that's
How
right.
many thousands of families all over the world are
Yeah.
out there, who they come into a community with nothing, and they develop a following, and they're there for people, and they care, and before you know it, they build up an amazing community.
You mentioned earlier, when someone wants to talk about Israel, you're there for them, and there have been 2 instances in your 32 years where you toyed with the possibility of running for Congress. One when Chuck Schumer ran for U.S. Senate and the seat was open, and another time when Anthony Weiner, who succeeded Schumer, he gave up his seat, and I read that you had toyed with running for Congress. Is that still something that you sort of wish that you did, and can you still do it? Or?
Well, first of all, you can do anything you want if you desire it at any point.
Well,
but
Paul Tonko, who's local here, he
Yeah.
ran for Congress his first time. He was 60 years old.
Yeah.
You're turning 65 this year.
You have to remind me of that.
I have to remind you. You don't look 65, but you're turning 65 this year.
Yeah.
So is that...
Look, can I tell you, being in the Congress would be a wonderful thing with the things that I believe in and stand for. I do a lot of national programs. I'm on Neil Cavuto, for instance, on Fox on a regular basis. Just a week ago, I was on his show and a lot of other shows. Of course it would be wonderful to be a member of Congress, but I think even in the Assembly, as an Assemblyman, I've done things that few other people do. I have defined the job for myself. Everyone is entitled to do what they want to do, but I've defined the job for myself and been able to do a lot of things. So the answer is, I don't know. Do I even for a moment think, boy, maybe you could have been in the U.S. Congress. That would have been wonderful. You know what? I was never driven to that particular task. My thing has been always, going back to my days in the Jewish Defense League with Rabbi Meir Kahana of Shalom of blessed memory, being involved, fighting for things, Soviet Jewry, Syrian Jewry, Jewish poor, fighting anti-Semitism. That's what I've done all my life, years before I ever became a member of the New York State Assembly. In fact, the way I was convinced, I never thought of running for office. I was never involved in a political club. Someone actually said, you know, all the things you do, that you fight for, that you stand up for, you could do it being an elected official. I said, really? And in a sense, I hope that I have fulfilled that in terms of speaking out, standing up, not being afraid, not being afraid. Not being afraid to do what you think is right is not always an easy thing. To be maybe sometimes the only one who's doing something.
Right.
You know, as a Democrat, for instance, very often you look at Democrats, if there's a Democratic president and he's being harmful to Israel, Democrats will not speak out. Okay? And I've never had that problem. You see, I'm a proud Democrat. I don't have a problem with Republicans. It's really a question
No, because, I mean, you endorsed Rudy Giuliani. No,
Rudy Giuliani,
Yeah.
of course. I've endorsed many Republicans,
Republicans, that's right.
major figures, and many Democrats. It's a question, but you know, in politics, right, crossing party lines is considered the worst sin you can commit. You know, if you're a Democrat, you're a Democrat, and that's one of the reasons also when you think about it, whether it's leadership here in Albany. You know, I'm not. I think I'm a very good Democrat, but not a blind one.
That's right.
You know, it's you know, you do what you think is right, just like other people do who have a different philosophy. They pursue their philosophy.
So you were starting off saying when the seat opened up, when Sam Hirsch announced that he was retiring, and
Well, he didn't retire. I ran against him.
Oh, you ran against
Yes,
him. Oh,
yes,
well, you
yes.
made him retire. You forced
he's happy because he's done very well after leaving the assembly.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, he's done very well. He has nothing to regret.
He's still alive?
Yeah,
Oh,
sure.
okay.
I actually met him in Israel recently.
Oh, okay. So are you? So you said that someone approached you and said, you know, you're fighting for all these things. Why don't you?
No, yeah, it was.
So-
Yeah, people felt that, you know, if you remain true to who you are, you know, coming from a JDL background, chaining myself to the Soviet mission, demonstrating, getting arrested for Soviet Jewry and fighting for things, that I would be able to do it as an elected official. I think I've actually done that. If you look at all the things, and God, you know, after 32 years, there, Baruch Hashem, is so much that I've been involved in that very few other people, I'm not happy about that sometimes I'm the only one standing on the corner. I wish there were many other people, but that's not the case most of the time. But I think I have followed through on that, and like everyone else, I wish I could do even more.
Well, half your life has been spent in the assembly right now.
Absolutely, absolutely. Since I was elected in 1982, right? It started in '83, and now it's 33 years later. So
And you're turning
God
65,
Almighty.
so there you
Yes,
go.
yes,
It's just
yes.
approximately
You know, one of the
half a life.
nicest things, we had a debate on the floor last week on East Ramapo,
Yeah.
and I was one of the people who got up to speak and so on. You know, one of the greatest comments I heard from somebody said, boy, the way you got up and spoke, the energy,
Right.
people, you know, much younger than you just don't have that. So Baruch Hashem, I thank Hashem for giving me the drive, you know, to, when I believe in something in my heart, I'm not afraid to speak out. I'm not afraid
Well,
to
even the
stand up.
budget, when you got up and spoke about
Right,
the budget,
right.
I was like, this is a keeper. I was recording it. I said, I'm going to keep this. This is like so
Right,
passionate.
right. Well, thank you.
You
Well,
know?
listen, you know, last week I spoke many times on the floor. You know, when I feel something, I don't get involved in just anything. But when it's important to me, when it's an issue of principle, I will get up and I will try to, in a cogent, articulate way, make the point that needs to be made. So, and there's a lot good that can be accomplished by everybody, and that's sort of my message to everyone in life.
Yeah.
For every single person listening to the show, say hello to your neighbor.
And watching.
Care. Why? Exactly. It's important to be educated,
Yes.
to follow things, to be
Yes.
aware.
Yes.
Most people are not.
No, they're not.
You know what I'm saying? One of the things you learn in political science, my field, is that there's a cost involved in being knowledgeable. You got to spend the time, whether
Yes.
it's listening to watching shows, reading a lot.
Reading the Jewish press, reading Albany Beat.
Your columns
That's-
in particular. If nothing else, go straight to your column. You know, it's important to be aware of what's going on and then make your decision. You know, I tell people, just listen to both sides and make your decision.
Right.
I feel comfortable with that in most cases.
And do you believe that in this era of people who aren't doing the right thing in the legislature, elected officials, that there's sort of a pattern here? What do you make of all? Does this ache in your heart? Does this,
What part?
all the people who are, are being forced to resign, being forced to,
Look.
being hauled away in
Can I tell you
handcuffs.
something? It's unfortunate. It's each and every case is different. Can I tell you, it's so easy for everyone to sit back and judge everything that goes on. I'm not going to be that judge. I'm not interested in being that judge. Every situation, one of the things everybody always says is innocent until proven guilty.
Mm-hmm.
Does anybody really believe that? Does anybody really practice that? The answer is no. I wish we could all take a step back and say, wait a second. People who sometimes get into trouble, don't judge. That's the nature of people in general in life, that we make it so easy to judge others, and there must be a reason for that. Maybe it makes us feel better.
I think what I'm getting at, do you feel that these federal prosecutors are overzealous?
I really don't know. If you take, and I don't, the Shelly Silver case, again, I'm not a lawyer, but if you look at it, and many lawyers that have spoken to me, there are real questions whether anyone did anything wrong. Now, perception is one thing,
Right,
but that's not a crime, perception. So I really don't know. I think it's going to be interesting to see what happens with some of these cases at the end of the day, to see what was really there. We can't judge. We don't really know. Prosecutors have tremendous power.
They
and
do.
If they get it wrong,
So what? But if they get it, and if you're acquitted, then where do you go to get your reputation back? That's General Westmoreland said that.
You never will. You
You know?
never will, and
But you did.
well, look, but
In 17 years ago. you had,
absolutely. Look, that's a remarkable story in itself. But that's why I'm saying it's so easy to judge. It's so easy. Oh, look what happened. Wait a second. Everyone gets accused of things, maybe not by a federal prosecutor, but even in your life, even by friends, by neighbors. And you say, I didn't do it. What are you talking about? It happens in work where you're totally innocent and someone says something about you. Someone spreads a rumor about you. So, in Judaism, we're very careful. There's so much time now in the assembly that I'm actually sit at my desk very often learning Sanhedrin,
That's right.
which is one of the tractates of the Talmud. And all the rules and regulations, when someone is accused of a capital crime or another crime, all the rules and regulations to protect the accused. The Torah is so careful about, God forbid, that an innocent person should not be found guilty. They bend over backwards for that. We should learn that in our own life on every level with our friends, our neighbors, and so on.
See, I remember you stood outside the courthouse and said, look at this jury. This was justice today. You had white, you had black, you had
It was
Pakistan.
majority Blanco. It was 8 out of 12 black.
Black, yeah.
It was remarkable.
And you said,
Absolutely.
this is
it was
the
amazing.
judicial system worked.
Yeah, absolutely.
But you must have been scared.
Well, that's a long story.
Yeah.
We could do 5 shows on that.
No.
But no, I wasn't scared. Life throws things at everybody, and challenges they're called. Sometimes you'd say, I'd rather have my challenge than your challenge. You hear stories about children being sick and terrible things going on, and so on. I could tell you stories just this past Shabbos about a little girl who was 14 who was walking with crutches and her parents were holding her up on Ocean Parkway. And I had promised the family that I would take the girl out for a meal with the parents. And the parents said to me, she can't eat. You can't go to a restaurant. She obviously only can eat at home, but whatever. We got to be thankful. People are sick, all kinds of sorrows, all kinds of difficulties.
Yeah.
So you got to be careful, and in terms of making judgments and We have a concept of l'kaf schus, always judging a person for good, not for bad, and not being negative, saying, you're supposed to, right? I mean, there's so many things in the Talmud about
100%.
bending over.
You could be a rabbi already instead
No,
of assemblyman.
but look,
No,
it's,
you're
it's,
right.
it's a question of living life in a way, you try your best to live life in a way where you try to do the right thing. You make mistakes, we all do. We all do. And learning how to apologize is an amazing thing. An amazing thing. So that's what life is all about. You try, but the bottom line is to do good, to make a difference. On whether it's as an elected official, through your writing, through your TV show, through your living in the community, that's what Hashem really wants from all of us.
Right.
Those brownie points, he keeps track of all the little things that we do.
I wanted to ask you, you mentioned earlier in this program about KJ, you called it, for the audience, Kiryas Joel,
in Monroe.
And that the people from Borough Park are looking to expand, and move to KJ. Tell us a little bit about what's going on.
Look, the community in Borough Park, Hasidic community, and other communities, housing prices are out of control. There is no family that can possibly afford to buy anything in Brooklyn, unless your parents are wealthy and they buy you the house. People are looking for other opportunities. Where can we go? Where can we start new communities? The Satmar Rebbe, the old Satmar Rebbe, thought about that and created Kiryas Joel. Kiryas Joel began with one family and 2 and 10 and now 22,000 people. So the Jewish community, whether it's in Brooklyn and other places, in Midwood, people are moving to Lakewood. People are moving to other places where the prices have gone up, but nothing like Brooklyn. So I think the future, in terms of many of these communities, is to find places that they can afford. And there's a lot of land in New York State that's open.
That's right.
Okay? And developing new communities, starting new communities, I think it is the trend already. And it will continue. Now, sometimes, as you know, it clashes with people in those communities already. You have these communities that not that many people, quiet, traffic isn't that bad. And then ultimately you have thousands and thousands of people who are going to move in and be their neighbors. And sometimes it's not just the traffic and it's not just the zoning. Sometimes for the people living in those communities, the people that are coming in, they look different. They eat different. They don't go to the bowling alley to bowl with you. They're not in the bowling league. They don't go to the movies.
They're not part of the Little League?
They're not part of the Little League. They're not part of a lot of the things that people from those communities are. And it creates a clash. And it creates a real problem. And it is a serious problem, by the way, in many of these communities. We just had a case in Bloomingburg, New York, where they try to keep a mikveh from being built and other things in the community. And the leaders of the community, the non-Jews and others, they said, well, it's the zoning, it's the this, it's the that. Well, a federal judge only a week ago came down in support of the Hasidim, and the judge basically said that the judge found that it had to do with the fact that they were Hasidic, that they didn't want these kind of people moving into that community. So this is a real challenge that I hope doesn't create real havoc and conflict.
But it's
right now it is a problem.
But it's the expansion of the land that they have, the boundaries
This
that
is
they
the
have.
case of KJ.
And they want to,
Yes.
and they want to build on land that was
Adjacent-
already bought.
Right, that people own adjacent to KJ. The land, the annexation is land that is adjacent to Kiryas Joel in Monroe.
Right.
And, it's become a very, look, I was out there last week, there were 700-800 people. I would say 400 or 500 of them were very angry. And when I got up to speak and mention something, they all started, I didn't know what they were upset. They were upset at me. They were angry at me because of some of the things I was saying. So there is conflict. I hope it could be minimized and that everybody can work together. But there is a clash going on, and the Jews from different communities are going to continue to move out and look for new places. And I think areas like Ramapo and Muncie and Kiryas Joel are areas we have a lot of land and a lot of possibilities.
So come to Albany.
When you go to
use a bigger Jewish
that would be
community.
great.
When you go to another assembly member's district to speak out about an issue, Does that cause a clash in the assembly between you and that other assembly members from those?
I think, in fact, one of those assembly members just wrote a letter to me today that's been publicized, angry at me for some of the things I said last week.
Brabenec or Skoufis?
Yes, just
Brabenec?
Yeah,
Okay.
just wrote a letter, which is fine. But look, normally it should never be done. But you're talking about major issues, and there is a connection. The people who live in Kiryas Joel, or the people in East Ramapo that I've gotten very involved in, every group in East Ramapo, every Hasidic group, Vision, Satmar, Belz, Klosenberg, etc., they came to me. The leaders of the community there are related to the community that I represent. And when they come to me with an issue that goes beyond just something that is an injustice, we're not talking about some minor issue in a community. I wouldn't get involved in that. But we're talking about when you have a school board and you want to take away the power of an elected school board, and it so happens that 7 of the 9 members happen to be Hasidic and Orthodox. Wait a second. Something is wrong. Why is this being done? It hasn't been done anywhere in the state of New York. You're picking one single area. This is where you're going to do it? That's a much broader issue, and I will always get involved in things like
So
that.
do you have a conflict with Ellen Jaffe and others who represent?
I don't know why
Senator
she doesn't look at
Carlucci?
me when I pass by. She literally does not acknowledge that I exist. But that's okay. Listen, I don't lose any sleep over it. Everyone else should do what they think is right, what they
So
think
it
is
does
proper.
cause friction within the assembly a little bit.
Yeah, there's no question about it.
Not enough to cause a fire, but just
No. Listen, people are cordial. In some cases, people are, they just, like I said, sometimes there's anger, but it's never, no one has ever expressed it directly to me, but they're definitely bothered by the fact that I've
The
gotten
body
involved.
language says more, doesn't it?
Oh, for sure.
Yeah, okay.
And, you know, we're out of time, but we're surely going to have you back again.
Thank you,
Because there's
thank
something
you.
to talk about. You say hours and hours, but
Thank you.
continue with the good work for the Assembly in
Thank
New
you.
York State and for the Jewish community.
Thank you for the
And
opportunity.
may
I
you
appreciate
have
it.
much success and happy early birthday.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, I'm going to run so I don't
Wait.